Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Yang Zing deck profiles. This is a really awesome synchro deck that basically revolves around using your monsters that constantly float from the graveyard. So basically, every single time one of your Yang Zing monsters is destroyed, they're just going to float into another Yang Zing monster, which is awesome to help you go into particular synchro cards in this particular deck. So, without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out that Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name searched for a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Light of the Yang Zing. So this is one of the best tuners in the entire deck. And what this card does is when this card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effects and sent to the graveyard, you get to special summon a Yang Zing monster from your deck except another copy of itself. And when a Yang Zing monster you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard while this card's in the graveyard, you can special summon this card, and if you do, banish it when it leaves the field, which is an awesome effect just to be able to get you this card back on your side of the field to go into all sorts of different synchro plays because it is a level 1 tuner monster. We then play 3 copies of Darkness of the Yang Zing. So Darkness of the Yang Zing is a really good card in this particular deck as well, because this is the main card that you're going to want to see every single hand, because when this card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Yang Zing monster from your deck in attack position except another copy of itself. If you control no other monsters, then you get to send 2 Yang Zing cards from your hand to the graveyard, and then special summon 2 Yang Zing monsters. Basically, you get special summon a Yang Zing monster with 0 attack and a Yang Zing monster with 0 defense from your deck, but banish them during the end phase. But basically, you're going to just use these monsters to go into a synchro play, so you get to special summon any of them from the deck. But all of them either have 0 attack or 0 defense, so it's very easy to pick which ones you actually want to summon. We then play a second copy of Shadow of the Yang Zing. Shadow is a really good card as well, because when this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you get to special summon another Yang Zing monster from your deck in defense position, except another copy of itself, and you only effect this card once per turn, and once per turn during your opponent's main phase or battle phase, you can get this card resolves, synchro summon a synchro monster only using Yang Zing monster you control. It's a quick effect, and then the possession of a synchro monster on the field used with this card to synchro summon that monster cannot be switched. So basically all of your Yang Zing monsters also give the synchro monster that uses them as a material a buff, which is super cool. We then play 3 copies of Fire of the Yang Zing. Fire of the Yang Zing, if it's destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon a Yang Zing from your deck in defense position, and it also has the ability that once per turn during your main phase or battle phase, you can have this card resolves, synchro summon a synchro monster using only Yang Zing monster you can currently control, and it's a quick effect, and a synchro monster that uses this card as a synchro material gains 500 attack and defense, which is pretty helpful. We play 3 copies of the Earth of the Yang Zing. Earth of the Yang Zing is really good too. It has the ability that basically it can quickly synchro summon as well, just like Fire and Shadow. And it has the ability also that it gives a monster a buff that uses this card as a material that cannot be destroyed by battle. So it makes the synchro monster not be able to be destroyed by battle. We play 2 copies of Water of the Yang Zing. Water makes it so that they can't be destroyed by trap effects. And then you play a single copy of Wind to make them not be able to be destroyed by spell effects and unaffected by spell effects, which is really good because you make them unaffected by spells, unaffected by traps, not be able to destroy by battle, gain 500, or not be able to switch, which is pretty cool. I love the way that the deck actually gives them buffs off of summoning them. We then play a single copy of Treasure of the Yang Zing. Treasure of the Yang Zing is a very unique card in this deck, because if this card is pendulum summoned, which is never going to happen, or special summoned from the main deck, you get to target a Yang Zing or a Zephyr monster you control except another copy of itself, and that monster is treated as a tuner. So you can basically make any of your monsters into tuners, which is super helpful. And also place this card on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field, and you only effect this card once per turn. And then we play 2 copies of the Secret of the Yang Zing as well. This card is pretty helpful in the deck too, that when it's pendulum summoned or when this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, in the monster zone you can add a Yang Zing or Zephyr spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which there's plenty of Yang Zing spells or traps in this deck that you're going to want to get to. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Called By. Called By is basically here just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you, because every single one of your Yang Zings pretty much float in this entire deck, except for the Pendulum monsters, which is really, really helpful to be able to just stop the Ash Blossoms. One copy of Monster Reborn, because this is a synchro deck, so you're going to try and extend into some really good plays. So this card is very, very important to just go into some extending plays. One copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. You don't want to deal with back row. Yes, you can with the wind and the water one, make them immune to spells and traps, but you do want to stop spells and traps in this deck, so this card comes in pretty handy. We play 2 copies of Yang Zing Path. This card is basically like a this card is kind of interesting, because what this card basically does is it's like Pot of Avarice. You get to target 3 Yang Zing monsters in the graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and then you get to draw 2 cards. You don't get to draw 1, but you actually get to draw 2. So this card is pretty helpful as a +1 in this particular deck. We then play 3 copies of Fury of Kairyu, because you want to grab out of your deck your copy of Torrential Tribute as quickly as possible. And also, if a water monster you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish the card from the graveyard instead. You're usually not going to use that effect. You're usually just going to let your Yang Zings get destroyed, so then they can float into another one. But the cool thing is, if your opponent attacks into a Yang Zing monster and you have this card to activate, you just activate this card, grab Torrential, and then set it while you have a Yang Zing on the field. And then when your opponent goes into their turn and they swing after they've gone full combo, you can just immediately activate the Torrential Tribute when your other Yang Zing special summons to field, which is pretty good to then board wipe them. We then play 3 copies of Dark Hole. Dark Hole is really good in this deck too. Board wipes your opponent, and it also deals with your opponent's entire field, and also lets all of your Yang Zing monsters float. So this card is a great 3 of in this particular deck, just to help you destroy field. So I play it as a 3 of in this particular build. And that's it for the spells. You don't play very many spells in this particular deck that you really, really have to go into, and it's just a really good lineup for the spells. For the traps, we're going to be playing a single copy of Skill Drain. Skill Drain is pretty good in this deck because all of your monsters activate in the graveyard. So this card is going to hurt your opponent a lot more than it's going to hurt you. And you can actually swarm the field with just your Yang Zing monsters to OTK your opponent, which is pretty good. But this card basically just stops your opponent while your Yang Zings activate in the graveyard. And also there's certain cards like Baxia that's going to be able to live through the Skill Drain with cards like your Water of the Yang Zing, because it makes the monster unaffected by trap effects, which is super helpful for this particular card to go off. We then play 3 copies of Torrential Tribute, because this card destroys all monsters on the field, kind of like a Dark Hole during your opponent's turn, which is pretty good to be able to just activate. 3 copies of Yang Zing Creation as well. Yang Zing Creation is really good because once per turn, if a monster you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon another Yang Zing monster from your deck, and you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for synchros, which is fine because we only play 1 monster that's not a synchro in the entire extra deck, so this card is totally a great card for this build. And then we play 3 copies of 9 Pillars of the Yang Zing. This card is awesome. When a spell or trap or monster effect is activated, while you control Yang Zing, negate the activation view, destroy that, or shuffle that card into the deck, and destroy Yang Zing you control, which is pretty good to be able to just pop your card, get another special summon, and also shuffle a card your opponent's activated back into the deck. So this card is awesome in the deck as a 3 of. Hopefully we get Delong back eventually, but for now, this card is a great 3 of in this deck. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Baxia. Baxia is awesome in this deck because what this card does is when this card is synchro summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the different attributes that was used to synchro summon this card of worm monsters used to synchro summon this card and shuffle them into the deck. And then once per turn, you can target 1 card you control and 1 level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard to destroy the card on your field, and if you do, special summon the other monster from the graveyard, which is pretty good to just help you revive cards from the graveyard, and plus, it's a really good boss monster. We then play a single copy of Yazi, Evil of the Yang Zing. This card is awesome too. It has the ability that it's kind of like Scrap Dragon. It cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, and then once per turn, you can activate one of the following effects to either target a Yang Zing monster you control and a card your opponent controls and destroy them, or when this card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effects and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a worm monster from the deck. In defense position, it doesn't matter which worm monster it is, it's just any worm monster. We're then playing a single copy of Chaofeng, Phantom of the Yang Zing. This card's pretty good because when a synchro summon, or when this card is synchro summoned in the field, you're going to activate cards or effects with the same original attribute of Yang Zing monsters used to synchro this card. which is pretty good to be able to just stop those. And then also has the ability that when this synchro summon card is destroyed by battle or by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can add a tuner monster from your deck to your hand, which is great to just get you an additional search. And then once per turn, when a monster your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon a worm monster from your deck and defense position, whose original attribute is the same as that monster, which we basically play every single attribute in the deck, so it's really easy to get a lot of different plays, depending on what your opponent's playing, especially if they're playing light or dark. We're then playing a single copy of Satellite Warrior. This card gets you a bunch of pops against your opponent because this card is really good to go into in this deck. One copy of Trishula, again, really easy to go into in this deck. Get you a bunch of banishes against your opponent. One copy of Ravenous Croco Dragon. Croco Dragon is really good because it lets you discard 2 cards, target a card on the field, and destroy it. And also, if this card is synchro summon, you draw cards equal to the number of non-tuner monsters used to synchro summon this card. So this card's pretty easy to actually summon in this deck. One copy of Crystal Wing. Crystal Wing is a awesome boss monster in this particular deck. It's very easy to summon. You can actually make this card immune to a lot of different things in this deck, so it's a really, really crazy card. One copy of Beals. Beals is also very easy to summon in this deck. If you can make this card immune to spells and traps, it's just ridiculous, because this card can't be destroyed by battle or by card effects, and then also if you make it immune to spells and traps, it's basically invincible outside of a kaiju. We play a single copy of Draco Berserker. It is a worm monster. When an opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can banish it, which is pretty good. And this card is pretty much a tank in this deck, because if this card is, if this attacking card destroys an effect monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, this card gains the attack of the monster that was destroyed, and then also can make a second attack during the battle phase, which is pretty good on a monster. One copy of Cyverse Quantum Dragon. This card just eats Link monsters, which is pretty good, because while you control Link monster, your opponent cannot target monsters you control with attacks except this one, and then also your opponent cannot target monsters you control with card effects except this one. And then once per turn at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can return that opponent's monster to the hand and make a second attack, which is really good just to be able to bounce stuff. But this card is really good if you have Needle Fiber on the field, but it also just eats through Link monsters, bouncing them back after your opponent's overcommitted to those monsters. So it's really, really good. One copy of F.A. Dawn Dragster because it negates spells. One copy of Herald of the Arclight because it gives you additional negates. Formula Synchron because you can go into some really good plays like Satellite Warrior with this card during your opponent's turn. Like a Satellite Warrior and a Baxia into this card is super nice. And then a single copy of Needle Fiber because Needle Fiber is basically the tuner synchro monster. So what this card does is if it's synchro or if it's link summon, you can special summon a level 3 or lower tuner from the deck to your side of the field, which is pretty good to be able to just immediately special summon that card in defense position. And also during your opponent's turn, you can basically tribute this card, and then once you do, you manage it to be able to special summon special summon a tuner synchro from the extra deck, which is Formula Synchron. So if you end on this and a Baxia, you can basically go into Formula Synchron, draw a card, and then use Baxia plus the formula to go into Satellite, and then get you at least 2 pops against your opponent, which is pretty good. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. It's a really interesting deck. It's been a little bit since I actually updated this deck on the channel, but it's a really fun deck. I changed up the build a lot since the last time, because the last time I updated this, I don't even think we had Fury of Kyrushin, which now we have literally a way to search like Torrential, which is crazy in this deck. We have 6 board wipes in the deck. All of your monsters float except for the Pendulum monsters, and basically it's just an awesome synchro deck. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell and soon come part notifications. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.